G'day everyone, and for those who came in late, you're listening to X-Band, the Phantom Podcast.
He washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck, and upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty, and all my sons will follow me, so evildoers will believe that this man cannot die." The Phantom, the ghost who walks. The Phantom, enemies beware. The Phantom's always there, but you won't find the Phantom.
G'day, we're the Chronicle Chamber team, and this is X-Band, the Phantom Podcast. Our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can contact us via email, chroniclechamber@gmail.com, or you can subscribe to us via YouTube, iTunes, or a plethora of Android apps. This is episode 205, our December 2021 Comics and News podcast. Welcome, Jermayn. Welcome, Dan. How are we, fellas?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Getting into the Christmas spirit. But no, it's fast approaching.
Yeah, I see you wearing your hat. I forgot to put mine on. I thought we had another podcast to go before Christmas, so I left it on.
I'm sure that we do. We've got a Christmas Merry Phantoming podcast coming up, but I suspect that Jermayn is already in the festive spirit, given that today's your birthday, mate. Happy birthday for today. I see you had a fantastic Phantom-themed cake on the socials over the weekend, and chuffed to be welcoming you into the 40s, mate.
No, not 40s yet, mate. Still late 30s. Don't age me even more than I already am. But no, thank you for that. Yes, we had a birthday themed cake. I think it was my wife's way of apologising to me for missing our anniversary this year.
Right.
Oh.
Yes. I've got a few more brownie points up my sleeve.
Well, as a repay her, instead of spending time with her, you get to come and do a podcast instead.
Yeah, that's it. Well, she's putting the kids to bed. That's the best birthday present you could ever get.
Very good. Okay, let's get straight into it. So, since our last Comics and News podcast, Frew has released three more normal issues. I don't think there's been any extra apart from the normal issues, no. First off is 1905. Paul Mason's It's Just a Shot Away. The Phantom in Nam series continues. Great cover there by Paul Mason, who's written and illustrated the story, which sees the Phantom now going through, and I've forgotten whereabouts he is in Vietnam now.
Huey.
Sorry?
Wasn't it Huey?
Huey, H-U-E.
Yeah.
For anyone who's going to pick us up on our pronunciation. One thing I like, without getting much into these stories, into the plot of the story, is thanks to what the introduction page, as well as the message from the publisher, and not knowing too much actually about the Vietnam War, apart from it was a major point in history. But these little bits there give you enough info to go and search something up about it and learn something more about the history of the Vietnamese War.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Every time there's been one of these stories, whether it's the short 8-pager or the full-length ones, I have then spent half hour to an hour just going from one page on Wikipedia or going on a YouTube video or whatever, and just immersing myself in the Vietnam War. And it goes on a lot of tangents. And I also like how there's like real life people in here. So like then you go searching for this person, you find out, oh wow, that they did this type of story. And I think that's the beauty about comics, is that for someone who is a bit of a novice in the Vietnam War, is that it gives you a great appreciation of the war, of the people that have gone before you, the people who have fought on both sides and lost on both sides. And I enjoy these stories purely, even if it's purely just for that. Even if the stories were no good, which they are, they're excellent. But just learning more about the history of the Vietnam War, I've been in, it's been a huge tick in line for me.
Yeah. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, I really love these stories. I probably have a bit better background of Vietnam for no other reason than I've taught it at school.
Thought you were going to say because you were alive back then.
Not quite. Dad was old enough to have been conscripted. If he was 1 day older, his birthday would have come out of the barrel. So, so not quite old enough to fight, as it turned out. But and maybe because it's that story, but certainly I've always been a history buff, and I've enjoyed teaching the Vietnam War to secondary school students over various times. So I've got probably a little bit more of a background knowledge, but Paul Mason's stories go into a depth and a detail that just reeks of authenticity. And I'll wager that every time you've done a deep dive, Jerm, you haven't come up with much that would counter what Paul is depicting here, because it's meticulously researched and really captures the vibe, the theme, the mood of the time, I think.
Yeah, I also like how the fact that fandom plays a key part, but he doesn't play the key part that changes history, which I think sometimes some Egmont stories can get a little bit too close with. And there's always that fine line of how much does a fictional character change history. And I think Paul's found that well. And I think for the most part, Team Phantom do that as well. But I think sometimes, or a lot of the time, depending on where you sit, they can get too close to that line, where I think Paul does not get close to that line at all, which I think is a real feather in his cap.
Yeah, it's the old thing about, this major point in history only happened because of what a fictional character did in the story. Like, no Doctor Who really treads that line, and sometimes it goes over it and sometimes it doesn't. And
it's a very hard line, especially when, let's face it, half of Team Phantom stories are about past Phantoms. So, of course, you're going to cross that line occasionally. But I think so far, Paul has, and I think it shows respect as well, because this is such from what I understand, it's such a, there's probably no winners in that war. Everyone came out a loser. And I think it would do a disservice if, if the Phantom was not portrayed the way he is.
Yeah, and I think, and I've sort of got a two-part response to that. I think that Paul also really carefully walks the line of the Phantom in a battleground, because at no stage in the story does the Phantom take sides. He tries to stop injustices on either side, and we've seen that across the course of a number of stories now. Not so much specifically this one, but across the course. And he doesn't kill. He doesn't stoop to either side's level. And still maintains the Phantom doesn't kill line. And I think all of that is probably summed up, and when you say about not actually influencing the course of history, but just being part of it, and it's summed up in the last two lines of the story, in what I guess is the Phantom's chronicle entry, where he says, "In the battle, I did what I could. In the end, it was and never will be enough." He didn't change the course of history. The Vietnam War did end up as an absolute disaster for everybody involved. And while the Phantom was there trying to do what he could, it wasn't and never will be enough. I think that's really well put. Yeah.
One thing I did like about the story is I like the whole motorbike.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, calling it a hero. That's great.
Yeah, and the big panels, which was like that one there, the big double page.
Yeah.
And then there was also that other panel where he was
sleeping off.
This one.
Parallel ones.
Yeah, the parallel ones. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good word. There's a lot of great work in that. So that's great storytelling. But what I actually liked as well was getting background from the Vietnam side of it with the locals. So having the two sisters on opposing sides, and I thought that was really well handled. Because there would have been, a lot of that, of people fighting on both sides who were family members, and it probably would have only just been, not really a decision. It would have just been circumstances that would have put them on opposing sides and stuff like that. So, I think he's done a really good job. I'm glad he's had more pages to play with rather than just 8 pages in here.
Yeah.
Just because he was able to get a lot more deeper, I feel, in this story, because he had, the 22, 24 pages to play with.
Yeah, I probably it's a very minor criticism, but I had forgotten about the search for the prince right up until the very last page. Maybe a line or two about that earlier in the story to go, oh, that's right, it's part of that continuing arc. Very minor criticism, and one I've literally only just thought of now as you were talking. I guess part of that is because of I really enjoyed that parallel story where the moment that he's riding in on the motorbike, he's had this flashback to a moment in a different life in a way, where he's done exactly the same thing, and it showed him how to act in, even those experiences in the jungle prepared him for this war in Vietnam.
Yeah. I actually contacted Paul about this story, one saying how much I enjoyed it, but there's a couple of panels where the Phantom's wearing a helmet. I'm just looking at the big, the 2-page spread on page 10 and 11, for instance. And you can see he's got something tucked into the band on his helmet. And it had me stuffed about what could that be. I'm sure it's not going to be like you see in others. They've got like the fellow on the cover, he's got like his pack of ciggies, or there's a little hip flask, or there's something like that. And I'm looking at it, I was trying to figure out what it could be, and I thought it's surely not a pack of ciggies, and it's not a hip flask, because that wouldn't be the Phantom. And then I looked at it, I thought, that kind of looks like a book. Maybe it was like a little chronicle he's writing in. But I asked him about it, said no, his idea was that it was gauze. So for anyone who was wondering what he's got packed into his helmet, it's a gauze pack, for your first aid kit, that sort of thing.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's the good thing about someone like Paul as well, is that you can talk to him about the story and kind of, get behind get behind the actual story and, talk to the man who created it and stuff like that. And that's one of the reasons why we do creator interviews on this podcast as well, is because, people
insight.
Yeah, people love all that insight and stuff like that as well. So no, that's good, Stephen.
There we go. Investigative journalism. Just directly from my Pulitzer.
I thought it was interesting. It was a bit jarring actually in the moment. A lot of people would criticise or have commented, I suppose that's the wrong word, have commented on Paul's work as being a bit too cartoony, and that stems out of Kid Phantom, obviously, where that was played up. The moment on page 20, at the top of page 20, when there's suddenly a very graphic depiction of what can really happen in war, would suggest that this is not necessarily just a cartoon. It does depict real life, does depict real war as well, and it puts the whole thing into context, I think.
Yeah, there's no vying away of the horrific violence from the war.
So just before we move further forward, did you see the little reference to Lee Falk on the front page?
On the front page?
On page 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the cover.
Sorry, not the cover.
Is that the Leon...
secret document, the one that's on top? Point 1, as you are aware, intelligence officer Leon Harrison Gross has been coordinating.
I think he's been doing that in all of them. I think it's great.
Yeah, it just talks to Lee Falk being the chronicler of the Phantom's adventures.
Actually, I forgot to look for Easter eggs in this one.
That was the only one that jumped out to me. I think
and of course, Hero.
Hero. Yeah.
But no, I felt that this was a story that was more. The story needed to be told, and Easter eggs might have distracted from the story.
Yeah, there was a very serious subject matter, and
the flashback sequence for me was a really good way of paying tribute to traditional Phantom stories.
Yeah. No. Anything else you just want to quickly mention, or we'll move on?
No, I think we move on. I think it's a very well put together piece, and I can't wait for the next one to come through. It's just astounding. The storytelling, the artwork, it's brilliant, and be interesting to see what it would look like in color. Is probably my only comment, because his work really does pop.
Yeah,
I wonder if
it would make page 20 even more graphic.
One thing I would like them to do, I think you raise a good point, is maybe when all the stories are being completed, or when there's enough, is actually to do it as a graphic novel with color.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And and then maybe Frew need to go down the path of, and I'm not sure how you would do it or something. But like part proceeds go to, to like
RSL or
RSL or
Legacy
legacy or something like that, and then you
yeah.
release it around the same time, and it's just and to kind of because I just think that it could be a nice touch to be able to do something like that, where just to be able to pay some respect, put it in a nice trade paperback or something like that as well. So hopefully Frew do something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how many more stories they've got in the pipeline just sitting on Dudley's desk waiting for their turn. But I can't wait to see more and packaged up like you've just described. I think that would be magic.
Well, from memory, that one was actually written a while ago, that one that we've just read.
Yeah.
But it was published just in time for Remembrance Day as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the week before. Okay, now also in that issue was the Riddle of the Grey Malkin, but we'll get to that later because it's part 6 to 8 have also appeared in the other issues. So moving on to Frew issue 1906, which is The Phantom of 1776 by the late Don Newton. Puts the Phantom, I believe, in the Civil War in America. I've got that right, haven't I?
Yep.
And
did they miss a huge
War of Independence? It's the
War of Independence.
Yeah.
Did they miss a huge trick not releasing this at Frew issue 1776?
Yeah, maybe.
Or you could have released it on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
All those sort of things.
Now, for those who are on YouTube, I'm going to be, as we're talking about it, I'm going to be flicking through it, but it's going to be the Charlton scan and not the black and white scan of this. So,
which is probably better because as I was reading this, I did read the message from the publisher and see that Dudley mentioned that it was Don Newton's final story. But right, I haven't really been too keen on his art the way it's been in here. But then I remembered, hang on a second, I have a book full of Don Newton, right? And so I opened it up, and I feel it was a lot better in here than in the Frew comic. My criticism would be that it lacks definition in the black and white, whereas the color gives it a lot more clarity. I feel. I just kind of lost some sort of focus. I was thinking words like splodgy and that sort of stuff. I think that didn't sound right. So if I said it lacks clarity, and that's what I meant. But when you give it its color, which I'm assuming that's the way it was originally intended to be in color, it creates a completely different atmosphere, and the story looks good. Whereas, in the black and white, a lot of detail was lost, I feel.
Yeah, and it also like for instance, this page here on page 6 and 7, there's a lot of blacks which isn't really black, and it just you're right. And that was my criticism the last time they printed a Don Newton story, was again it didn't really work out well with it being printed in black and white. So I'll have to agree with you there, Stephen.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I hadn't read this story before. I also own that Hermes Press book, Steve, that you just waved up there, the collection of from Charlton, the Don Newton art book. But I can't say I actually read through this story. As I sit here now with my copy of the Frew in black and white, I enjoyed reading it. I did think at one stage, I wonder what this would look like in colour. Now that I see it up on the screen that Germ's sharing and the YouTube people can see, I think it does look nicer in colour and probably would be a more enjoyable read. But that said, I still really enjoyed this story, and I've read it for the first time in black and white in Frew issue 1906.
Oh, it's a great story.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I was reading it in the Frew, but then I kind of would flick over to the color one just to get an idea of what it would look like in color. But I actually read it in Frew for the first time. Yeah.
So for those who are not aware of who Don Newton is and all that, do what we talked about before and actually do a bit of a Google search on him. He was a highly influential artist who Yeah, grab the book that Stephen's got. We've got a review of it on our Chronicle Chamber website and our YouTube channel. It's worth getting. I've had a lot of Don Newton fans say that it's probably one of the more definite type of collections and information about Don Newton as well. So I remember first reading his stuff when they, probably would have been close to 30 years ago now. And it took me a little bit to get used to his art style. But once I got to it and kind of understood it and stuff like that, I really enjoyed it. And really enjoyed this story. I'm not sure if this would be my favourite story of his. There's probably 2 or 3 that are kind of like really close. Like there's the what is it? The Ibex Mystery and the Beasts of Madame Khan, and this one are probably my 3 favourite stories from Don Newton. But this is a great story because it's very patriotic as well for our American friends.
Yeah, it is and it isn't. I found it really interesting to read in that context because it was published in 1977 for the first time, and America was at a different time of its civil rights movement through that period. The 60s had been quite tumultuous, and the 70s, no less so, really. The fandom is quite openly anti-slavery, and while I've got some qualms about the way it ends and the way that he operates when he's. I was worried initially. Then he comes back and goes, "No, I'm actually against all slavery," which was good from my 2021 lens. And the fact that he's talking through Benjamin Ben Franklin, is that who it was?
Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah.
That's
who I thought it was.
Yeah, that's sorry. I've had a little moment there. So there is that patriotic element to it, but there'd be certainly people in America who would call themselves patriots who would quite disagree with the way the fandom handles this.
Yeah, well, but I'm sure there's probably fandom fans that aren't vaxxed either. So just because you're a fandom fan doesn't mean you got brains.
We just had a rally here in town.
But anyway, so I wanted to quickly talk about the cover. So this is the Don Newton cover that he did. It is very, very iconic cover. So you search for Don Newton, this cover's always one of his best pieces of work, highly talked about. Whoever's got the original art to this could probably write his own check if he ever wanted to sell it. And then you've got Luca Roberta's cover, which uses the same patriotic flag type of thing. That's the second time that Luca's done an iconic Phantom cover that he's had to redo a Phantom iconic cover. This one, and then probably the what do you call it? The flag.
The other one involving a flag.
Yeah. But I would say that these 2 covers that he's had to redraw or redo for a Frew issue would be maybe easily the top 10 most iconic Phantom covers ever. So it's big shoes. Do you think he's succeeded with this cover?
I think it's a good cover. I don't think it's as good as the Don Newton original, but this one looks nice and polished. The other one, it's a very different style. The other one looks rough and rugged and war-torn, whereas this one's very clean and crisp. And it depends on what type of mood you want from the story.
Certainly take under advisement what Dudley said about a sudden production rush on needing the cover, and it sounds like Luca really rose to the occasion. I'm not sure what sort of time frame that means, but it doesn't sound like he had a big one. Up front, I don't particularly like the Luca cover. Like I fully understand it and respect it, and it is a great use of the tribute piece, I suppose. But for mine, it's just a little bit too Superman, with the cape billowing, the stance in front of an American flag. That would be my interpretation of it. And I do think, for the reasons that Steve said, probably Don's is the better one. But, we're measuring something that is one of the all-time, as you say, iconic Phantom covers, certainly ever produced by an American publisher, against one that has been produced in rapid time for Frew in Australia.
Mm.
So I wonder what our American audience would think of it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I wonder if this could have been a cover that could have been like done for, what is it, July the 4th, or, so that might have been probably my only criticism with this issue was that it might have, and I think maybe that's a bit of an overall issue that I have with some of what Frew do, is that they could time some of their releases of their comics to be, more strategic with certain times. Like this could have been a brilliant one for 4th of July. The Vietnam one could have been good for Anzac Day, or it
wasn't time. It wasn't time for Remembrance Day. I'll give it that one.
Okay. Yeah, and the rainbow flag cover was around Mardi Gras.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I do like the back cover, I must say. I think Luke has done really well depicting those soldiers rushing out of the smoke. That's very, very of the era.
Yeah, and works like filters into the flag. And, yeah. Okay, moving on. Next one, there was
sorry, but before we do move on, just that I thought it was interesting reading these two back to back. That in many ways there were similar themes between the two, like it was the Phantom being involved in a point of history and discovering that as try as he might, he can save or he can have an influence on one small part of it, but can't solve the larger problem. And I would have probably enjoyed more of a balance for that with the Phantom of 1776, because the reason he goes to America is because many people from a village have been captured by slavers. He goes over there and is only able to find one and bring that one home, which is very realistic. I get that, but I just I wasn't looking forward to the return of that one king's son to the village, and the Phantom saying, "Oh well, I saved the king's son, but I didn't find anybody else." Yeah. And I get that he couldn't completely solve slavery, of course, but might have been nice if he'd been able to bring most of the civilians of that city.
See, I actually think
that's a good critique.
I actually think it's better that way, because it shows the realism that he was only able to save the one.
Yeah. As I say, realistic. Whether 3 or 4 and he was able to bring all of them home, I still like to have a good news story. Still that realization that I'm not going to solve slavery. But yeah, maybe bringing a few more home would have been nice.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Like, you're like, oh, he needs to bring more, and then I'm like, oh, I actually like the fact to say, and I guess that's the beauty about why we have a couple of people discussing them on the podcast, is because we all bring different views.
But yeah, just the two of those back to back, the Nam story and the Independence War of Independence story, similar themes, going into a war zone, not picking a side, doing what's right, and being frustrated at not being able to do more.
Well, issue number 1907 was very much a change of pace. There's no war in this story, Nosferatu's Revenge, by the late Claes Reimerthi and I'm not going to pronounce that right, Janusz Ordon.
I reckon that's pretty good, mate.
Not too bad. And a cover reading in by Dudley, very quickly done by Alex Tripp, who's done. It's a nice wraparound cover there with front and back, and I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed this because when I first looked at the cover and I thought, oh, this looks like a vampire story. I didn't have big expectations on it, and I saw it was Claire. Is it Claes or Klaus? Klaus, I think. So it was Klaus, and thought, oh, this could be a supernatural vampire. Do I want to read that now? And thought, oh, I've got a podcast, I better read it. But it was a lot different than what I was expecting, and something that could, realistic.
Yeah. This will be I get the feeling this will likely be fairly high up in the top Frew and
I'm not putting it that high.
And Phantom End stories of the year.
You reckon?
Yeah, I
thought it was higher than my expectations, but I don't know if it's that high.
I'd certainly have it in my top 3 of the stories we're reviewing tonight.
Well, you're only reviewing 3. But I would not be surprised to see this top 5 for both countries.
Why do you say that? What puts
I just think it like you said, it's it's fun. It's kind of it's got all the elements. It's it's fun. I like reading about the 20th Phantom. It's not the 20th Phantom would be one of the Phantoms that we don't actually kind of see much about. The artwork is great.
The artwork is phenomenal. I'll put that one in the top for the
and I would say it's probably one of
Claes'
better stories, probably in his last half a dozen to 10 years. I like how it follows. If you're on YouTube, the one that I'm holding up, which is 1199, the Hollywood murders. This one talks about how the 20th Phantom met his wife, and so it kind of follows that. You've got if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see the guy on page 4 or something, where he meets the guy who he met in that issue as well. So there's a bit of continuity. And so yeah, I like the story, so I really do, and I liked how it's kind of got the crazy movie guy, and is it supernatural, is it not? And for me, that's about as far as I like my supernatural stories, is where it's someone playing supernatural or stretching that, and then
it's a bit of the old Scooby-Doo, isn't it?
Scooby-Doo,
yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's a very good way of doing it, and so that's, for me, that's how I kind of like it. I don't like supernatural as much, and so this for me is the right level.
Yeah,
what about you, Dan?
Sorry?
What? I was just asking you, what about you, Dan?
I found myself nodding a lot as both of you guys are speaking, because I also went into this with reasonably low expectations, to be honest. Like, I loved the cover. I thought, as far as vampire type covers go, this is one of the better ones. But yeah, I sort of went into it going, okay, it's a Reimerthi, it's Nosferatu's Revenge, okay. It could be a mummy story, or no, it's going to be vampires. Wasn't real keen. But again, it was that Scooby-Doo type villain aspect of it. I thought that between the two of them, they really captured the mood of Hollywood, as I understand it, the mood of Hollywood in the late 1930s, early 40s, where you've got, and he referenced a couple of other actors of the time. I can't find them now, but someone who had struck it large in Hollywood and then wanted to live the lifestyle. To me, he seems to be based on Bela Lugosi, who was so famous as one of the first Draculas to appear on the screen. And yeah, it was just a really enjoyable story from get-go, from start to finish. I know, Steve, you would have loved the... Oh, no, sorry, that's in the other story. I've got to remember to bring that up when we talk about Grey Malkin.
Do you think... Yeah. Do you think, because you said that you came in it with the low expectations, do you think that actually helps? Like, if you came in with, like, let's just say, for instance, we were talking to Mikael, and Mikael goes, "Oh, this is an amazing story. You're really, really going to like it. Top 3," or I'm not even sure Mikael's going to say that, but let's just say he did do that, and then you read it and you're like, yeah, okay, but seeing you, had your preconceived ideas that it was going to be, what Claes has basically done, and then it's like, oh, it's actually enjoyable. And so, do you think that kind of is one of the reasons why?
Quite possibly,
could be. One of the other reasons is that as soon as you look at the artwork, it blew me away. I thought the artwork was phenomenal.
Yeah,
in this.
Yeah, he's a great artist. Hopefully, we don't lose him to the Phantom from the Phantom.
Yeah,
I love the way that he plays with the panels, the way that the panels are broken up. On that page that you've got out, the panel designs, page 18 of the Tim Fantoman version. the panel edging, the fact that the character's stepping outside the panel, and falling outside the panel. I think it's really well done.
Yeah. I really like his art. One thing I do like is that the art looks just as good as in black and white as it does in color. Now,
this is a big difference then to the Don Newton, that the art works in black and white here.
Yeah, and a lot of artists kind of struggle to find that balance between the two. And so, like in black and white, it's like if a lot of readers will be going, "Oh, he's created this for black and white," not and because it looks like it could quite easily be created for black and white, and then you look at it in color. And I remember when I first saw one of Janus's work, I'm like, "Oh, I wonder how it's going to look in color. Like, will it look muddy and too dark and stuff like that?" But it looks really good in color, especially with like this on panel here on page 22, where you've got the Phantom being blinded by the light. There's a lot of darkness in it, but then you have these bright bulbs of color, which makes which almost highlights the blackness even in a colored comic. So I think he's done a really good job with his work, and the coloring's done a good job as well.
Yeah,
and his I really like his Mr. Walker. His Mr. Walker looks strong and really good. Something that this is my one critique, and Dudley does say that this was like a last minute inclusion. They had something else for this issue, but realised that they needed to make space for the final part of the Grey Malkin. Which, having said that, well done to Alex Tripp for his cover at short notice, because that is absolutely brilliant. But there were some translation issues, like right there on the first, very first panel. Too bad more didn't come along. Although a desert trip may not be the best idea for a pregnant woman, using a pregnant women, the single plural confusion. And I thought, that started putting me down. And so that probably also helped to lower my expectations. Oh no, and that also, there was a couple of things, they were just little things like that, which may have happened because it was rushed. But there was a couple of little translation issues on the same sort of line. However, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the story. I shouldn't say I really enjoyed the story, but I enjoyed the story. I liked the play with the brothers and the way things happened. But to say it was in my top 5 for the year, I'd have to really double check the rest of the stories. But the artwork is definitely in my top 5.
Yeah. And I do agree with what Jerm said about this being one of Claes Reimerthi's better stories that I've read for, whether it's 6 to 10 years, it could easily be, I suppose, because it just seemed like Claes wasn't taking it too seriously in this.
That's a good point. Yeah. I will also say, as we're finishing up, I've just got it on the screen if you're on YouTube as well, that the Frew cover is a lot better than the Team Phantom Man cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
As much as I like, it's a nice cover, but I think the Frew cover is just horrific, and Alex has done a great job in, like, even just like, on the bats on the back, how they've got that warm torn holes and the veins popping out and all that. It's just it's a scary cover, and Alex has done a great job with the cover. So sorry, Henrik, but you're second best in this one.
It's the eyes that get me, and also the colorist Mason has really brought this to life, and the eyes on Nosferatu, you're just absolutely drawn to them. And looking at these and this cover and many covers that Frew does, I used to look at this website and they'll show the best covers of the month or something like that, but it was all American, and none of them had the Phantom. And I reckon there are many Frew covers that would easily knock down anything that some independents as well as DC and Marvel have been putting out. So yeah, I wish that these other comic book aficionados would take a look at our little Phantom publication here in Australia and see what's going on, because there's some absolutely knockout work happening here. Now, did this knock you out with the Riddle of the Grey Malkin? We've wrapped it up, part 6 to 8 by Glenn Lumsden and Jason Paulos. It's all been resolved, or has it? Maybe they've left it open for another meeting between what's her face and the Phantom?
Paris and the Phantom.
Paris, that's her name. Paris from New York. Oh, one last thing about Nosferatu, because I thought this was fun. I thought this gave me a chuckle. The fellow's name being Vlad, and the way that he dies, he's impaled. Vlad the Impaler. I thought that was good. Anyway, yes, the Grey Malkin, the Phantom. Where do we start off with part 6? He's gone to New York.
Looked in the basement.
Sorry? No, he's locked in the basement by the end.
Locked in the basement.
We're up to it. But from part 6, he's in New York. They've discovered that the Grey Malkin has been kidnapped or catnapped. There's a ransom up for it. The Phantom's gone to rescue it. They've found out that the person who has catnapped the Malkin is actually someone that they know. He feels guilty. He tries to make things right. It goes awry. His house burns down. There's death. But still we've got the Phantom, we've got Paris and the Malkin.
And he gets knocked on the head. Steve's favourite.
Bloody well knocked on the head.
That's what I was going to bring up before. That was.
I'd forgotten that. I was actually remembering how much I was enjoying this, and then you had to remind me that they knocked him on the back of the head.
Come on, Glenn Lumsden. This is your chance. You have 20 seconds to make a whinge, Stephen, and then we're moving on.
I hate that he gets knocked on the back of the head. Every bloody time, knocked on the back of the head. Surely by now he knows that there's people. He's got these jungle senses. To its credit, it does turn out to be a key plot point of how did he get knocked on the back of the head. It must have been in a secret panel. It's not like he just okay.
No, that does turn out. You get the payoff for that in issue or in episode 8. So I was like you. I was like, oh, not again. But I did like that we went back to it and
a secret panel. I'll give him the secret panel, secret passageway.
All right. No, we're now in the knock on the head free zone.
Not on the head free zone. And then they leave New York and go back to Bengala to see if they can reunite the Grey Malkin with its mother. And because she's done a deal, well, if the Malkin goes back to his mother, well, then no worries, no harm, no foul. But if the mother rejects him, she can come back with me. And the fan goes, oh, well, that's just too annoying. That's so fair and reasonable that it's annoying. How could I what's the word? How can I say no? And
he gets hoodwinked.
He gets bloody hoodwinked.
I must admit,
anyway, that's.
I started off not liking Paris, but by the end of it, she grew on me.
She's a fun character.
Yeah, and I like how she kind of fooled the Phantom and she ended off with a kiss, and it's very McCoy-ish, like Wilson McCoy kind of era stories. Always ended off with the Phantom giving every chick a big passionate kiss. It's very Phantom-esque kiss. But yeah, no, I started off not liking the series. Then I went on the fence. By the time, and I said it last podcast, when he went to New York, I kind of liked a little bit more. It wasn't it's probably the best Gaslight that we've seen. Like, I preferred this one than the first Gaslight episode. Is it really Gaslighty? There's elements of Gaslight, but I've read, like, for me, when I reread the Legendary series featuring the Phantom when we did our crossover podcast back in episode 204, that felt more gaslighty than what this does.
See, for me, that's more steampunk, which is close to what I would say close to Gaslight, but with more modern touches.
Yeah.
However, the way he's done his boat here seems to be a little bit more modern.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't seem as gaslighty as probably what as I kind of expected. But I think I might actually like that better because it's more Phantom than the Phantom running around in flying carriages and something like the Wild Wild West featuring Will Smith or something. That's probably I think I prefer a less Phantom gaslighty than say going to that extreme.
Yeah,
but overall, it was probably a solid. If I had to give it a out of 5, I'll probably give it a 3, maybe a 3.5 out of 5 if I had to put a vote to it.
I think that for the Phantom, that by gaslight can simply mean the Phantom who was in the 1890s, early 1900s, that 20-year period, and probably visiting cities because that's where the gaslights are, rather than being the jungle stories. So I'm quite happy with having not read a great deal of other gaslight stuff and having a preconceived idea about what that genre should mean. I'm with you in terms of the two Phantom by Gaslight series. I enjoy this one much more. I thought that the far fewer characters made it easier to keep track of when you're coming back once a fortnight sort of thing to read them. And I thought it was really well paced. I thought the chapters, the episodes were really well controlled, and it unfolded in a really logical way. I loved the fact that even though there wasn't I went into episode 8 thinking, okay, here's the resolution. It's all going to be wound down. The bad guys have been caught. Suddenly another bad guy appears on the scene, but there's not actually a physical confrontation. I thought that was. I
like that. I really like that. That was actually probably what that page there, that bit where he got scared off because of Paris having the Phantom mark. That would be one of my highlights from that whole series, was that little bit.
Yeah. And we've talked before about creators who really know the character, and that's a sign that the creator really knows the character. It's not just an adventurer they're putting in that story. It's the actual Phantom that's in that story. So
I would say that was probably harder to write than just the Phantom just punching him. So So I think that's really good. Now, question: Glenn Lumsden or no Glenn Lumsden? Page 26.
The cameo of Glenn Lumsden on page 26 of, that's the last one, isn't it?
Episode 8. 1907.
Yeah, I think that is 100% Glenn Lumsden.
Yeah. Now on YouTube, we'll show a comparison as well, but we might put it on social media as well. But now, I'm not sure, Glenn was not dressed like that and well groomed like that when he did our podcast with us. He had his hoodie on and he was really rugged up in the middle of winter. But now, did he appear earlier on or not? I can't remember if he appeared earlier on, but when I saw that panel, I thought, when I saw that panel,
that journalist certainly appeared in episode 1 and 2, I think, of Grey Malkin. I haven't gone back to have another look because it didn't necessarily stand out, but it certainly leapt out at the page as we go through that one.
Yeah. So
nice little cameo there. The writer being a writer, playing the role of a writer in the story.
It was nice.
But yeah, I thought it was a fun story, and if there's going to be another meeting between the Phantom and Paris, well then let's see how that goes. But we also learn of Paris's fate. She doesn't last too much longer after this adventure in the Grey Malkin. The dreaded Frew gets her.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because, as you said, the story did finish with an opening for another meeting between the Phantom and Paris Green, but clearly it would only be fleeting. Anyone thinking that she might become a future wife of the Phantom, that's been kiboshed straight away because we know she dies 3 years from now.
Yeah, but I kind of like that. It and it's also clever from Glenn because then it's like, well, I've got a potential of another story, so now it's up to you whether you want me to write it or not. So
yeah. Okay, quick question. So we had eight page episodes. If Frew came out with a 64-page colour, because we know Jason Paulus does all of his work in colour as well, 64-page colour version of the collected works of the Grey Malkin. Would you be interested in that? Would you buy it? You'd of course buy it because we all do.
Buy it. I think it would work better if they also did the first part, as much as I didn't enjoy it as much. But so let's just say, like, you know, they did a collective works of Phantom by Gaslight, and they did the first part, which was the three Phantoms, yeah, and then this one as well, and then any others. So instead of just the Grey Malkin, they did all of them as collected as one. That's how I would probably prefer it.
I wouldn't put them in the same book. It would be Gaslight 1, or Phantom by Gaslight 1, and whatever the name of that is. Phantom by Gaslight 2, which should be the Grey Malkin.
But 64, how many pages Dan said, which was 64 or whatever, I don't think that will be enough for it to be a truly collective type of works. But the first series was, at least 100 pages.
There was 10 episodes?
Okay. So, maybe 10 episodes. So that's 80. Then you've got 60 here. So that's 140. If they did another Gaslight series, then it could probably go to, say, maybe 200 pages, which is probably around the right range for a trade paperback or something like that. So that's kind of how. But a 64-page one, that's more of just like a regular Frew issue. But I'm not sure if you would release it as a regular Frew issue because it's just been published. But a trade paperbacks.
If you were going to do that, you'd want to just put it in the drawer for 15 or 20 years and then bring it out and do a 64-pager then. I personally wouldn't bother collecting Gaslight 1. That's what I think of that story. I'm happy.
Yeah, but if you're doing collective works of Gaslight, I think you would include it.
Yeah, you don't have to include something just because it's got a name. It's got to reach a standard. And no offense to anyone involved, but I just wouldn't be interested in reading that again in any form, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I wouldn't collect it right now. Like you said, I'd be waiting 15 years. Now something's happened. I've actually not. Something has happened, but we'll get to that. I like to read the letters to the editor at the end of the Phantom Forum. Something about the barcodes. Did you read the letter about barcodes? Apparently,
we made mention of this probably a good year or two ago on the podcast.
Yeah, that Frew reuses their barcodes. And the little number at the end helps to know what issue number they are. But the barcodes are changing. So if you've been checking out the barcodes over the last however many years or after the last year, you'll notice that the barcodes have been changing because now there's a price increase. We've gone up in the space of these issues, or between 1906 to 1907, there's a 20-cent price increase from $3.75 to $3.95. Did it break the bank for any of you guys?
Not for me. I'm sure there's probably some fans out there that still think a Frew Phantom is $1.50.
Yeah, that's me. Even though I know full well that it's not.
80 cents when I got on board.
Yeah, but like we established earlier on, you were alive in the Vietnam War. Unfortunately, there's been a huge inflation increase during COVID. Milk's gone up, mortgages have gone up, fuel's gone up. It also means that, comics have to go up. Unfortunately, it's just society, I guess. I do like them doing gradual increases rather than big jumps. So, for instance, if they stayed at $3.50 and then all of a sudden they go up to $4.50, I think that would be a lot harder to famine for a lot of people. But having the gradual increase, I think, is a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Just a slight interesting point is that issue 1906 is the last one with $3.75 on the cover price. It's actually listed as $3.95 if you buy it off the website. So you're better off getting this one from the agents while it's still there if you can, rather than off the website where the price rise has already taken place. I guess the question it raises for me, and we talked a bit about it with this issue, and with all three, we talked about colour versus black and white. $3.95, $4 is getting towards the price of a cup of coffee. If we started seeing all of the Frews published in colour, surely you've got to have a consummate commensurate increase in paper quality to make sure that the colour is as nice as what Jerm's been showing us on the PDFs on YouTube from the other publishers. We'd surely be seeing this get up to $7 for a comic, and I think that's probably a bridge too far for your fortnightly Phantom comic.
Yeah, that's the price of an American comic. I think around about that much.
Yeah, 7 to 10.
Yeah, between 7 to 10, and that's when I kind of get a bit of a shock when I get stuff at the local comic shop. I'll pick up my Phantom, and then if something else takes my fancy, I might pick that up as well. And all of a sudden, sorry.
And it's the one that blows the budget.
That's the one that blows the budget. Oh, crikey, how much did I spend? I didn't mean, and that's including like $2 or $3, whatever it is for the file cards that you get charged as well. So I've already factored that in. Then all of a sudden, the extra price with the coloured American comic, that it really does blow up. But I can handle it. I'm in a good position at the moment. But if I was a Popo uni student or a pensioner who's living paycheck to paycheck, well then, doubling the price is it's particularly every fortnight. It could get a little bit hairy.
And I think that's why you have to stick with black and white for the majority of it, because the majority of Frew readers are of your probably 45, 50 plus, which includes a lot of pensioners.
And I think you're also bringing new readers by being a cheaper, not quality, but a cheaper product to buy. I think the stories really hold up, and you're getting your bang for your buck with what is essentially $4 now. I would like to see at least a colour comic at least once every 2 months, though.
Would you? That often?
Yeah, because what Dan just talked about, getting new readers, you're not going to get as many new readers with black and white comic as what you would with a colour comic.
No, I disagree, because I don't think everything hinges on black and white and colour. I think I think there's a bit of a which gets said a lot, that it's your granddad's comic or it's your dad's comic, which is some sort of a stigma on the Phantom. But when they actually go and read it, they enjoy it. So if they can just turn that stigma around, that'd be great. Maybe doing things like, if we can get, we're going to be talking about a social media manager in a moment, that sort of stuff would help. Having podcasts like us, spreading it out, kind of like I've had kids at school who have come across, like I haven't said anything, but they've come across it. When they came across the Phantom, they weren't stalking me. They were actually, doing Phantom stuff. So there are young people out there checking the hero out. So I don't dive into the black and white v color in regards to getting new readers, because you've got things like manga, which just goes boom, and that's black and white. So yeah.
Well, we've got a great podcast on color versus black and white, so we won't rediscuss that here. You can go back and listen to that. And then, Stephen, you talked about social media manager as being an important matter for to get new Frew readers, and I completely agree with what you said. Did you guys read the little bit of article about the social media guy? Read some of his answers and all that. Did you like what he had to say about what he is looking at doing for Frew and bringing the Phantom into the current generation?
What social media is he on? Is he in control of all their
I think eventually, yeah. So he's done. So he's on Twitter and Instagram at the moment, and then he said that he's in the process of getting Facebook, and then he's looking at doing other stuff like TikTok and all that as well.
All right.
Now, I think all of that's good, and Dan, I know you're a bigger Twitter user than what I am, but I think Facebook seems to be kind of like an older social media platform. I can't believe I feel old saying that, but I think seeing a lot of Frew readers are still older. I think it's good that he's still going to focus on Facebook, because I think that's key to keep entertaining the older people as well as the younger who probably use Instagram, Twitter, and maybe even TikTok.
What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. For the audience of the Phantom, that Facebook is going to be absolutely crucial. For what it's worth, I might just show you. Oh, can you get me to share the screen, Germ? For what it's worth, I think that the Twitter account that he has started from scratch is moving in the right direction. And here we go. Share that. Okay, so this is the Twitter account that he started, and the fact that the banner has changed to the current issue. Each of the issues comes with a bit of a spiel and a bit of an advertising thing. We'll talk later about the fact that Frew has started to sell Shakti. That's on there. He's shared. That's obviously the post that you put up. Start of December. Get out your Christmas wardrobe. So there's moving in the right direction. I think. Have you guys watched this video of Renee White's?
No,
if you
I haven't been on Twitter.
Oh, really? I'll send you guys the link, and we'll put the link in the subscription too. But if you haven't done yourself a favour yet and watched Renee White introduce the subscription service and what to do once your envelopes arrive, do yourself a favour because it's highly entertaining.
Entertaining in a good thing or entertaining in a groan?
Look, I'll let you be the judge of, and we're back to the very start. I'll let you be the judge of that video. I'm not going to prejudice anybody in any way about it, but it's a minute and a half that you'll enjoy on some level, I'm sure. So anyway, the point being that's the sort of stuff that he's putting up on Twitter. That's exactly the sort of thing we've been saying for a long time should be going up on Facebook as well. So who knows what the hold up is there in terms of Trent getting the keys, so to speak, to the Facebook account. But if he's going to be putting up those fortnightly clips about here's the latest comic, why don't you go and buy it, and intersperse that with, Christmas is coming and that sort of fun stuff that the Phantom's got a plethora of images to go with, then that will go well.
Yeah.
Well, what you just showed us then, scroll through, that looked good. I thought that looked well. So good on you, Trent, for that little bit of what you've done so far.
At Phantom Comics AU for anyone who's on Twitter and wants to go and search it up. If you're not following it yet, they have got less than 100 followers so far, but I'm sure that there'll be more diving on as time goes on.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same handle for Instagram as well. I guess the thing that probably excites me is that something's better than nothing. Even if, Trent, he's of the generation where, social media is part of their life. So he's grown up with social media. He knows what social media is. And even if he only does half a good a job, it's going to be a lot better than what was currently done before. And, purely because, Frew needs to have a presence. We talked before about the need of getting the next generation. Hopefully, this is going to, even if it only captures 50 to 100 new readers, which isn't a huge number, but it could extend the lifetime of our comic, of our characters. So, whoever signed him up, whoever over at Frew got him on board, 2 thumbs up or a good mark for you. And yeah, hopefully we see some increase in activity about the Phantom.
Okay, so we've gone through our issues. We've gone through the price rise and the social media manager. We've had these. Well, we've enjoyed the Grey Malkin stories as a bit of a backup to these shorter. Well, say shorter, but it's probably been a little while now. These 22, 24-page Team Phantom stories. What do you see, or what do you think Frew might do for a backup story now? Is there anything that they might already have up their sleeve, or is there something that Team Phantom has done that they could, get shorter stories? Does anyone have any idea or the inside word? Is there more Gaslight coming our way?
Not that I'm completely aware of. I hope they don't go down the path of the Phantom Crusader short stories that we saw a couple of. As much as I enjoyed the stories by Andrew Constant and Jason Paulus, he's just not the Phantom for me. So it was worth a try.
What about Andrew Constant's? What about Andrew's story with the robotic Phantom? Will we see some shorts?
As long as
down that way.
as long as it's Phantom-like, as long as it's our Phantom. Or
does it have to be our Phantom? What do you mean by does it have to be 21, or does it?
No,
does it just need to be a Phantom who is the Phantom?
It has to. It doesn't even have to be the Phantom. Like Phantom Men did the World of the Phantom stories, so they did little short stories featuring Guran, Kit and Heloise.
Well, that's all right.
But it's from the Phantom universe, I guess is probably a better word. Where Phantom Crusader, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but it sits so far out of the Phantom universe that every time I read the 10 Phantom stories and then even the Frew stories, I've wanted to like them because I've liked the creators that have been involved, like Kerry Lappanan, Andrew Constant, Jason Paulos, and great guys. Absolutely love their work, love what they're doing for the Phantom, but it's just not Phantom. So I wouldn't mind seeing some more Gaslight, but whether they're standalone 8-page stories or whether they're parts.
What about you, Dan? Were you being a Phantom Crusader fan?
No.
Yeah, I kind of knew the answer to that. I was just waiting to see the look on your face.
I had moved on a while ago. Right, Crusader's no good. Move on. I like the idea of the world of the Phantom stories. I'd be interested in seeing some of those because that idea of a short clip of what goes on for this character when they're not interacting with the Phantom, I think that's a really cool idea.
And you learn more about that character and it develops their character as well, which I think is probably the key point about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure that it's going to be something we're going to find out super soon because, as we said when we talked about Nosferatu's Revenge, the cover was was done in a hurry when Dudley said he realised he needed to make space for the 8-pager finishing or conclusion of Grey Malkin. So he's clearly got a 32 or a 36 pager up his sleeve that he's been itching to get into production. And we might see a few of those perhaps. We know that the Christmas issue's coming up. That's always a bumper one. So it's probably going to be deep into January before they need, maybe even February, before they need another filler story and we find out what the move is there. But I mean, of the options that we've talked about, the world of the Phantom stories would seem like a good one to me. And of course, if there's any more 8-page Phantom in Nam stories, I'd love to see those included as well.
What? Oh, sorry, Stephen, were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't go for Crusader as well. I don't hate it. I think there seems to be a quite visceral reaction there from some people in regards to the Phantom Crusader, but no, I don't hate it, but yeah, I wouldn't mind it, but I'm not. It wouldn't be on the top of my list, I guess. Yeah, I mentioned this back when we talked about it, but that story, because when I said I was talking with Paul, how am I able to write? Yeah, he's hoping that one day he can write and draw more of the series. But those ones that have been published were all done back in 2019 and the beginning of 2020. So from that, I'm going to say that there's probably no Phantom from in Nam stories in the pipeline at the moment. That'll be great to see some more.
Look, one of the things I would like is Frew get inundated with a lot of potential writers and artists who want to do the Phantom, they want to get published and stuff like that. So I think the 8-page stories is maybe a good breeding ground or a good nursery for up-and-coming
tester.
Yeah, for up-and-coming artists and writers to understand
cut their teeth. We want to keep
cut their teeth with the Phantom. Exactly. And so it's kind of like, okay, you want to write some stories? Give us an 8-page story. Or, an artist? All right, here's an 8-page story. Write that. And then, so it's not as a huge commitment for the Frew editors, and especially someone like Glenn and all that, to have to hold their hands for a 24 or 22-page story. You can kind of, in theory, is a little bit easier for someone who's newer at it to be able to do an 8-page story. So it could be, like a nursery training ground for to finding some new talent.
And you could even advertise it that way. I see that idea, and it's not a bad one. It will be up to Frew if they give it legs or not. But another point we've got here, could it be like a mini giant size where, the Shadow gets an 8-page story there, or the Raven or someone like that gets their own little 8-page story, and it could be like a little, for those people who haven't picked up giant
like
size,
a hook.
Yeah, little hooks that they can get themselves into. Would you like to see another, doesn't Phantom Man do that? Like they've got Phantom stories, but then they'll have another story which isn't Phantom?
If it is to be like that, our Phantom would have to be in it somehow. Kind of like
and
a
then
crossover.
That's not going to work because we're not allowed to have crossovers.
Yeah, I know.
So that idea is just gone down the toilet.
I wonder if they're allowed to reprint a crossover they've already done. So Scorpius, for instance, gets a bit of a run.
Yeah, that's too soon.
But is Scorpius also too long? We had that issue with Heart of Darkness.
We did Heart of Darkness. If we can get through Heart of Darkness, we can get through
yeah, but people got a cold heart reading towards
true.
Heart of Darkness.
That's true.
Personally, as much as I like those giant-sized characters, I want them in giant size. I don't want them in the regular issue.
Yeah, I don't mind if they
as
did
their own standalone story.
Yeah, if they did it once in a while, as a hook. But preferably, I prefer the Phantom in my Phantom.
Yeah, I want a Phantom in the Phantom story, in the Phantom issue.
Yeah.
So even if they're just standalone short stories, that'd be good too. Go for it. Before we hand over to Mikael and Ankit, who will review the latest Swedish and Indian comics, we are still looking for someone from Brazil to review the Phantasma comics. Please contact us.
A new Phantom review, this time issue 24 of 2021. It has a cover by a new artist. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but maybe Percy Okwa. The only earlier Phantom work I've seen from him is the contribution in the Bushfire book, and now his this licensed Phantom cover. We have some editorial pages. Andreas explains a bit about the backstory of these Phantom Traveler pages that we will see for the third time in this issue, and that Phantom number one was on show that they were guessing values of different objects. It was valued at 10,000 Swedish kroners. Also notice that Swedes can buy the Norwegian Christmas album from online shops. The main story is the 999th Team Phantom story, Gatans rovdjur, so the street predators. Daniel Carlson's second story, and this has art by Anthony Spey. As Andreas talked about in his interview in the Expand episode 201, me and Andreas did save the 16th Phantom a round trip to Europe by changing a few words on this first page when it happens. It's about these street kids that start to disappear, this story, and Phantom tries to figure out who done it and why. And as I mention every time there's a space story, I really love the art. It's amazing. And after the main story, there is this that we talked about earlier, the traveling pages that looks like a traveling magazine basically. And this one, the second story, is a Falk McCoy in black and white, The Grue of the Sleeping Giant. This one has some clever points, but as I complained about with the shoplifters in an earlier review, I have some hard time swallowing that all people get fooled by this, the bad guys basically. Well, not all. One of the kids seemed to understand, but his father is hitting him for talking out of line basically. But I really enjoyed the retro feel. A lot of panels for each page, I would say. And what's more, next issue, that will be a real treat as well. double issue 25-26, the last issue of the year, and it will have the 1000th Team Fantomen story, and it will also have a daily story that hasn't been published before, the Duncan Munro story, Hero Complex, and a reprint of a Team Fantomen story, The Last Emperor. Wow, that is something to look forward to. This is issue 25-26 of 2021, the last issue of the year, and wow, what an issue. Look at that beautiful cover by Henrik Sahlström with the Sing logo, but with the Phantom in the middle and some femmes around the other circles. And you should really read up before you read this one. Andreas does a great job of connecting so many storylines into this one, and the universe feels a little bit more tidy for it. It's art by Janusz Ordon, and I love it. The title is The True Sing Brotherhood, and it is a contemporary story, mostly about the fallout faction of the Brotherhood after Sandal wanted to be president. But also talks a lot about the female Jungle Patrol members and tied these up a lot of contradicting facts that are there before. There is also a bit of story here about the 1000 Team Fantomen stories and all of the writers and all of the artists, how many they have done. So leading writer is Claes Reimerthi and leading artist is Kari Leppinen. But Game Valve is very close by, and after that Fellmang. And after that there is, this is an article written by me. So that's fun, about some of the history of Team Fantomen stories, and maybe I have chosen a bit more of the weird ones, I would say, and such, and really nice. Big ad for this Rough on Roughnecks book. And then we have the Team Fantomen reprint of The Last Emperor, and this one is great. I would have loved to see it in colors, as I usually do, but this was published in Frew in issue 984 and 1568. It's about when the 8th Phantom was emperor for one day and got a nice saber from Junkar. And after that we have this Sunday story from 2017. It was cut off from when it was published back in Fantomen 13 2018. Then it was only the second part of the story, basically. It's written by Tony DePaul and art by Terry Berry and Jeff Weigel. It becomes quite short without the second part, but great to have a little bit more complete of the newspapers in Swedish Fantomen. And finally, the Munro story, The Hero Complex, with art by Jeff Weigel. I guess Australians need no introduction, but I mean, this is a great story about some of the issues Rex is facing when he has to be, or want to be, a fair ruler, and not everyone is playing nice. I really enjoy this, and in Sweden we also directly is informed that this is more than one part to this story. And the first issue next year will be actually in December this year, but it's still called issue number 1 of 2022. It has a reprint of The Magic Flute by Donna Avnell and art by Hans Lindahl, and it has the second part of the Duncan Munro Jeff Weigel story. And then we will get more information, it says here, so that's cool. This time we have the Christmas album of 2021. To be honest, when I heard about this lineup of stories, they did not excite me that much, seeing it was only daily stories. But when I read through them, I really think the coloring really lifts them to a new level, and I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. Beautiful coloring. The cover, made by Henrik Sahlström, is great. Maybe the tiger's eye are a bit unrealistic, but I mean, look at that dynamic, and yeah, Stripe is a cool tiger for sure. First off, it's the Animal Collector. The art is not the best, but quite fun to see all of these Team Fantomen elements added to the newspaper strips. There's a great article by Jermayn about this that you should check out on Chronicle Chambers. This is the first time this is published in a Swedish Fantomen publication. Then the next story is Swamp Dragon. Let's see where it starts. That doesn't really matter. Here it starts, yes. So, not one of Falk and Barry's best, but enjoyable. I was a bit confused by the translation choices made by Ulf back in the day to alternate between monster and dragon, which when in the original it always says dragon. And then we have Xali. I have read this story so many times, but as I mentioned earlier, the coloring really brings this to the next level. It is hard to believe that this story was done over 30 years ago. I really enjoyed reading that. Then it's the old album from 1971 or 72 it says here. Great, as I said last year, that we're in the years with full color albums, and this includes 2 Barry stories. That is also a great addition. I mean, this is the Golden People, and yeah, it's great. Yeah, and to top it off, as an extra, there's an unpublished Rolf Goose cover and a short in memorial. Great stuff. Oh, here's the text. Thank you for listening, and happy phantoming.
I'm Ankit, and today I'll be reviewing from the new publisher from India, Shakti Comics, is the first issue of The Phantom. Now, as many of you who have been following us in all our social media posts and content, you must be knowing that India now has not one but 2 publishers who are licensed to print the Phantom books in English, and one of them is Shakti. And Shakti Comics comes from the brainchild of someone of basically Shakti Comics was initially a retailer of mostly Indian comic publications like Raj Comics and all, but from this year onwards they got the license of King Features to produce comics of the Phantom, Flash Gordon and Mandrake, and I'm not sure, but maybe other King Feature characters too, in the languages of English, Bengali and Hindi. So here we'll be only reviewing the English book. So let's get on to it. Now, one of the things I have to say in the beginning is this is their very first debut as a publication, so they've never been a publisher before, and so one of the things I'll just tell you about the overview. The quality is really good. Like, it is better, if not at par with Regal in terms of just sheer production. This is a laminated cover, and it's like what, a 64-page book, and it's got glued binding. It's pretty much like this is also called perfect binding in India. So this is basically like what a trade paperback will have, but it's small. But there are some issues with it which I will come and I will discuss in great detail, because this is their debut issue. So stick with us. First, we'll just look at some size comparisons. Now, this is their issue. Now, this is a little the size is a little smaller. It harkens back to the older Indrajal comics, I guess. So this is what it is in comparison to like Regal Comics. This is Regal Comics issue 18, their latest issue, and side by side you can see that both, like, it's just like about like a centimeter and a half smaller by length. Width is pretty much slightly a smidge less when compared to a Frew. Yeah, the Frew and the Regal are pretty much similar, except the Regal might be a tad bit taller, while this, so here you have it. And coming to some other points here, so this is a laminated cover. cover is about 240 GSM, I am told, paper, and the inside pages are all glossy paper, and they are about, I guess, about 110 GSM, which is great, which is crazy. Like, this is even thicker than the GSM that is used on the Regal books, and of course the cover is laminated, so which is another bonus now. The price of this is the same as a Regal issue, which is $200. However, the thing is, every Regal book has 2 stories, whereas Shakti is giving you 1 story per book. Another thing, so let's get into the inside part. One thing I will say is the printing quality and everything, absolutely spot on. No comms, as just like what Regal does, which is far superior to what, Frew does on a standard comic issue. A Frew trade paperback does a much better job in printing and paper quality, of course, but this is the kind of thing that makes me think that Frew is really behind the curve when it comes to doing printed material on a regular basis. Like in India, I guess it's much cheaper to produce books like this in comparison for Frew. Maybe, I'm not sure, but Indian publishers putting out monthly books with this kind of quality, which Frew makes once in a year through a trade paperback or maybe a graphic novel, the Frew subscribers should think about it. Anyway, now we'll go to the internals, and so the story here is Mike Manley, Tony DePaul's story, The Curse of Old Man Moss. Before we go into the story, I'll just show you like certain things. Like, there are character bios here for, the art is done by, I think, Abhishek Viswas. The bio is written by me. So yeah, my name is here. And so it's a good thing, like, for a lot of people who are coming straight into this book, there are characters whom, like Moz himself, where a lot of Indian characters, like Indian readers might not even have heard of him, because he himself came to a much later story, and the way Mr. Tony DePaul has evolved his character is very different from what Lee Falk had written to him. And you can see the inside, the presentation, like it's really good the way it's been designed. I have, like, the props is the design. Oh yeah, and the main thing, the cover. Now the cover art is by Anupam Sinha, who is basically like probably the biggest Indian comic artist name we have in recent times, like, because he's like the main man behind the Super Commando Dhruv and Nagaraj. So I know a lot of Indian, like, Raj Comics readers will really pick this up, especially because of his, and it's his style. And anybody, like, I've heard a lot of different opinions of people, but for an established artist who's done the kind of work that he's done for over a couple of decades now, he will have his own style, and Nagaraj is like the style that he's instantly recognizable for, and so it's not surprising that there is a lot of Nagarajish Raj Comics elements right in the cover. And so yeah, anyway, coming to the story. So here there are some issues that I will point out now, and these come in because you must remember, Shakti is a first time publisher. They've never had any experience in publishing, so these are probably the birthing pains that we will see, which will be ironed out in the next few issues. Remember, Regal, even their first issue was very shaky. The printing wasn't at par, so, and nor were the covers, and they've gradually improved it over as time went, so we can expect that. So technical things that I will speak out is this comic, this that is basically a daily strip, and there is kind of editing, certain omissions, and more importantly, some aspect ratios have been changed to give it that comic feel, and I'll show it to you in a comparison here. So here, I've got the stories here on my iPad here. So you can see I have the daily strip laid out here. This is the original daily strip. So what we have here is the first page. As you can see, here is a bit of edit going on. And the first thing that will hit you is the fonts are all different. For some reason, maybe it was by translation, they didn't think, they have removed all the fonts. They had probably made everything blank, and then they they typed it via, and they used Comic Sans, which is to me a very horrible lettering thing. It looks, this is the thing, this is one of the things that will hold them back. This is not the issue in Mandrake or Flash Gordon, though, I'll tell you. So Phantom bore the brunt of their birthing pains, is all I can say. And this also does raise some issues, because there are in certain pages, I can show you, because of literally retyping the whole thing, they've had to, they have made some typos. And yeah, I'll show you one here. I had noticed it as I was reading. Here, and I think this panel is somewhere. Just give me a few seconds. Here, look at that. The line is, there would be no Phantom, not unit kit returns on his own someday. Whereas in the thing, it is actually not until kit returns on his own. So yeah, so this is what happens when you remove everything. Similarly, in these edits, they have like as I was saying, now if you realize, these strips are designed in a way that so the panels, most importantly, so you see you have two panels here, right here, and then the story immediately shifts forward to the third daily, and you can see there's been change, to tell the flow in a way, so, and this panel is hence removed, which is okay in terms of storytelling, because it doesn't hurt the story. However, it does hurt when, like here in like a panel here, you will notice he tells a thug, like here, that's everything I know, now what? See, and then there was this one, now get lost, I have work to do. Now they did not use this panel, which makes it the next part of the dialogue. I can go, I just walk, like, why is he surprised? So if they had included this panel, now get lost, like where Phantom tells him to get lost and all, this wouldn't be weird, because over here is like, that's everything, all I know, now what? I can go, I just walk. So that is the only error that you see. And then secondly, these are 3 panel strips, okay? So they have tried to make it, say, suppose in 2 panels. So you can clearly see that it has been stretched a bit if you compare it side by side. The best example is here. Look at the face of the guy here and here. You can clearly see it's been stretched. However, you will see when they do go back into this normal strip layout thing, it really looks good though. But then again, for better, I guess for better, like here again, they're in that, they completely unedited that thing. But however, here you can again see it's been stretched out. So where the story allows it, they have stretched it out. But basically what I realize is they have tried to make it look like, more of a comic than just a strip reprint, which I really am very, which is like I would say is a great venture. Like they've done a great job that way. Like it's a very new thing. It's not something new, but even if you look at it that way, Phantom, and when they used to initially reprint some of the Saibari stories and all, they would do some additions. Even Indrajal did it, because the aspect ratio doesn't always work for all comics. So yeah, but taking all these things aside, which is obviously a lot of people might think like, but taking everything in this, is a great product. This is a fantastic product, no doubt about it. Like, and also as far as I know or understand of the situation, whatever stories Shakti prints, Regal won't be printing. Similarly, whatever Regal prints, Shakti won't be printing. So though I guess the only way you can have a Curse of Old Man Moss, the story as a daily, is by buying this. So yeah, so for those guys who are trying to complete the reprints of post hoc Sundays and dailies, you will have to get both Shakti and Regal, I guess. And the best part is they are both bringing out very good products, and this is a really good product. I can't recommend this enough. Yes, there are issues with the fonting and everything that they've done. Sometimes, yes, the stretched out art, but like it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Like if I'm pretty sure if I did not mention these things in the review, a lot of people might not have noticed, and that is exactly the point. The whole point is you read it and you're enjoying it, and as long as you're enjoying it, that's it. So it's best that you make your own decision, and I will definitely keep buying their next issue, because like yeah, this is really great presentation. I have some issues with certain decisions they've made, but I guess they have already learned by now. So yeah, good, like great work. Can't recommend it enough. Like this is another quality product coming out of India. You guys out there, I'm guessing, like from what I've heard, Frew will very soon have some copies of this on their website too. So yeah, you know whom to contact and get this from. I will in the section of the about description there will be thing, and you can go straight to shakticomics.com. I think they have a site, and order it directly if you are from India. If you are from outside India, best bet is to get it from an Indian friend. And if you are willing to spend that extra money, and you buy it from Frew then. So yeah, that's that, and happy phantoming.
We have some daily and Sunday stories in progress. We've got the Sunday story 192, the Ingenious.
I was just going to say, I'm really loving this story. We're only in the setup of it at the moment, obviously, and the Phantom's gone to sea with the Maori fish. The Maori males. And the two women who have both got good marks, it turns out, have disappeared from the village. I'm really liking the way that this story is unfolding.
Yeah,
yes, and we know that they end up in the city. I think we've seen a little tidbit on socials, I think from Jeff. So we know kind of where they're heading, and we'll see how they're going to get there. What happens to them when they get there?
I don't know. It's a bit slow at the moment, but I'm hoping that there's a good payout or a payoff for the. And I don't want, maybe slow is not the right word, but they're spending a good couple of weeks setting up the story.
There's certainly character development.
And I like how Tony has spent some time developing these characters. Like we've got the king here, who we talked a bit. Which we had featured in a previous story. We've now got him here again, how he's trying to, modernize it, in a sense, modernize his tribe. So I like how, that's one thing that Tony DePaul's done quite well, is that he's developing secondary and third level characters in his stories, which has probably been a bit of a criticism with a lot of Lee Falk stories in the past. So look, the art's great. I like how also the tribes are starting to have their own distinctive.
They're all unique to each other.
Yeah. So, like again, in the past, they all look the same. From Raymore, Wilson McCoy, Saibari, and everything. Where it really feels like Mike Manley and Jeff Weigel are making a effort to differentiate between the tribes.
Oh, look, I again, with the Daily, I'm really interested in where it's going. And over the last probably, I guess maybe it's the week now that we've seen Savannah start to emerge in hiding. The fact that the story is going to move back towards her again. We see Kit sneak out overnight. I think there's. I'm talking what's been happening in the last week or so, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get there. So now the Phantom's reading the chronicle of what is
Moz's
to happen,
and
then that's basically where we see Savannah again.
Yeah.
So it's a continuation from the story from a number of weeks ago, where it was all part of the dream under the tree. So that's a sequel to that, which has been broken up with the Phantom making sure or allaying Diana's fears about Kit by showing actually Kit's all right. Here he is. I've paid off a copper. He's keeping tabs on him.
I really like that, actually. I really like that little scene about Kit. Like, it's, we haven't really seen like a Kit adventure yet, but it's just like, like you just kind of get enough of him to remind readers that, hey, he's there. He looks like a man. He looks like he's grown up. He's stocky. He's not a boy anymore. So, and then this bit here is going, oh, who cares about Moz? And, the Phantom's, the Phantom's kind of clever getting their attention away from Moz.
Yeah. Done the thing right.
So the Phantom has tissues. The Phantom has tissues in the Skull Cave. Who would have thought?
It's no smoking, not no crying in the Skull Cave.
I reckon that's Diana touch.
Yeah. What are you about to say there, Dan?
It's interesting that the Phantom is supporting corruption by paying off these police.
Just helping him with his little Bahamas or whatever it was that he.
But I suppose if the level of corruption is, look, I'll pay you so you can send some video and photos back, so my wife will be happier about where her son is than all. That's
okay.
All. But
Now the Phantom's reading. This chronicle written by Old Man Moz. It's amazing that Moz has been able to learn how to read and write so quickly, because for a long time he was a storyteller and he actually couldn't read and write. How do you feel about this? Is it a huge thing in the world of Phantom, or it's just okay now he can read and write?
Yes and no. Like, I feel like.
Are you losing sleep over it, Jim?
I'm not losing sleep over it,
and
but
it's not a big deal. It's okay.
I do think it's something that, unless I feel like Tony needs to explain why and how Old Man Moz can now write, where previously
he can always read and write.
He was because Lee Falk had made a point in saying that Old Man Moz does not know how to read and write. The Phantom actually embarrassed and had to apologise to Old Man Moz when he said, "What does this mean?" and handed him a chronicle in a Phantom story. And I just feel like there needs to be,
was that in a folk story or a Phantom story?
Yeah, it was in a Lee Falk story. If Tony DePaul is changing that now, Old Man Moz can read and write, I feel there needs to, which it's his right to do, because he's established enough now as a writer to be able to do that. I feel he needs to be able to explain that, so there's the continuity is still there between Lee Falk and now when Tony DePaul is writing.
But does that mean now he has to explain why the Mori now look very much different to the Longo or the Wambezi or anything like that?
No, I don't think that's breaking from what Lee Falk has wrote.
That's different.
Yeah, but we're talking about something. We're talking about contradicting Lee Falk. And Dan,
the resident Falkist, Dan,
mate, Jerm is the first one to point out that Lee Falk has contradicted himself any number of times. I don't think Lee Falk is rolling over in his grave or would expect Tony DePaul to give any reason why Moz is now a soothsayer and a future seer, any more than he needs to explain what he can read and write now. I mean, yeah, I'm quite comfortable with the evolution of Moz as this character. I think it's probably appropriate that he might be able to pen a message in a chronicle and have his own chronicle. I don't mind that concept at all.
No,
So could it be that, in the past he couldn't read and write because, a different time, a different era, that they were the uneducated natives?
No, see, I don't think Lee Falk ever did it like that. I think because it was always, and as a Bible scholar, you would know the importance of storytelling yourself, Stephen, is that it was always it was,
yeah, but they couldn't read and write. It was told the same way Moz did it.
Well, it was just because it was not important. Reading and writing was not important to them. What was important was being able to retell the stories. And I don't have a problem. Like I said, I don't have a problem with Old Man Moz now knowing how to read and write. If anything, it is a good thing that he can read and write. It's just, if there is, and I wouldn't call it a major contradiction, but a minor contradiction. All it needed is, say on this page here, is, always from memory. Now he's writing in the Chronicles. And all he had to say was, so he learned how to read and write. And because I have seen some fans who have questioned that of how can he write and read and write it? And all it needed was just a little comment to say he's learned how to read and write. And then,
I think he's done that by saying, so why is this tale for me alone? So I think he's saying he's learned to read and write because it's an important tale that he needs to have written down for the Phantom. It's something that's of utmost importance for him.
Yeah, I don't really think that explains how he's read and write. But anyway, this podcast has gone on for a while. We're not going to... I'm not sure if you're looking for a point of difference, Stephen, or not. But
I just like to change sometimes. I want to have a bit of fun sometimes.
Yeah, and as the person who's running it, that's what you kind of have to do as well. So you've done a good job. But look, it's an interesting development having Old Man Moz writing a chronicle. It'll be interesting to see whether, once the Phantom has read it, whether it goes into the Chronicle room or whether it gets destroyed or, what happens to it. So I'm looking forward to that. We've seen Kate Somerset, her journal's gone into the Phantom Chronicle. There's been some from Julie and stuff like that as well. So, it'll be nice to have Old Man Moz's chronicle of what may happen in there for future generations to read it, and then to be able to read the 21st Phantoms, to be able to read Old Man Moz's, and to be able to go, well, my decisions, my actions do have consequences and stuff like that. So I like all that future possible playing and stuff like that. So I'm very intrigued of where this is going.
Okay. So as always, if you agree with us or disagree with our reviews of the comics and stuff from that we've gone through on the show today, you can let us know via our social media accounts, which are Facebook, chroniclechamber.com, and the Phantom Collector Group, of course, Twitter at @Chronicle_tweets, Instagram at Chronicle Chamber, and YouTube Chronicle Chamber, where you may as well be watching us right now. Now, is there much news? We've got a couple of little points for news. We'll try and get through these quick. We've realised that we've kind of gone on a little bit with our reviews. I thought the reviews would go quick, but they didn't today. But a big news coming out from Team Phantom, and they've reached 1,000 stories, which is an amazing achievement. Some highlights, Dan, if you could pinpoint a couple of their stories, which ones would you say go and read?
Look, in terms of favourite stories, one of my favourite Team Phantom stories has actually only been published in a Frew issue once. It was one of, if not the first Team Phantom story I ever read, and it was a real highlight for me. It was called The Ghost Pirates by Norman Werker, and Jamie Belvey was the artist. Published in Frew number 765. As I say, I think it would have been the first Team Phantom story that I read, and so probably had such a jarring, like Valvey is a very different artist to McCoy, Moore, Barry, who were the ones who were being published by Frew at the time predominantly. And so the art leapt off the page for me at the time. And I really enjoyed the story. It's a smuggler story. The Scarecrow is the villain. It was just a really, really cool story that I enjoyed at the time. Other ones that I remember, and as I was scrolling through the 1,000 titles that have been released, I must confess a lot of them I think are very samey, and I find a lot of the historical stories really samey, and so they not necessarily as memorable as I find the newspaper stories. The White Horseman was one that I really enjoyed through the middle of the 90s. I feel like it was published. And then more recently, I think the Blood Rain story with the 8 different jam artists contributing was a really cool story I enjoyed as well.
I forgot about that jam issue. That would be up there. You definitely go see. I don't think there's any surprise about my number one. When I got back to my Phantom collection after a number of years, of the first stories that I reread were the Triads. So that one holds a special place. I just enjoy it for some reason. I just really like that story, and of course it's just been redone in a collected work from Frew in full color. A couple of the ones that you've got here, Jerma, King of Chicago. I remember that was probably the second one I reread after the Triads. Just the picture of I think it was Grandpa
lifting
Phantom,
lifting up the car.
Every time I see the name King of Chicago, I straight away it's the Phantom lifting up the car. It's just an image that is burnt into my brain.
Do you remember?
I might have to go get a commission of that one.
Do you remember the interview that we did with Lynette Moberg, who wrote that story?
I think we said that. I was saying the same thing to her.
It was just same. That's one of my all-time favorite ones. I remember reading that when I watched the Untouchables movie with what is it, Dennis Quaid and Sean Connery in it.
It's got Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner, that's the one. Sorry,
Andy Garcia.
So I remember watching that movie and reading this comic, the story around the same time, and for me, it was, and we've talked about this before, but it was kind of like the Phantom played a key pivotal point without interfering with it too much. And I just always liked that story.
Present in history without influencing history.
Yeah. The setup was another one. That was the story that kind of hooked me. For those who don't know, I was basically on my way to a mission trip to Indonesia. And we had to, go get a comic. Everyone else was getting the Archer comics and all that. I got the Phantom, and I got the setup, and I've probably read it 20 times on the flight over.
It's like a 50-pager or 60-pager as well, isn't it? It's a longer story.
Yeah, and it reminded me again of The Fugitive. You remember with Tommy
Lee?
Tommy Lee and Harrison Ford and Wesley Snipes and those type of movies. Whereas like escaping from the policemen who are the good guys, but also like
chasing the wrong fella.
Yeah. So that kind of hooked me as well. The Milk Drinker, really enjoyed that story. The Lubunga series,
absolutely.
The Malta, like the Battle of Malta, or the Venice story where the first Phantom and second Phantom are fighting side by side. The first Phantom stories also where Ulf Granberg kind of added to what Lee Falk had already wrote about the first Phantom as well. So that I remember reading those as a new Phantom fan and just like learning more about the first Phantom and why he does things and why he calls himself the Phantom and all those type of things and the start of the legend of the man who cannot die and all that. That stuff just resonated with a new Phantom fan and just hooked me. Eden, remember, it's probably the only Phantom story that I almost cried in. It's just a real heartwarming story. The Beanstalk is another really heartwarming story as well, which the ugly swan. type of ugly duckling, beautiful swan type of element as well. So, look, there's some great stories. It's kind of made me thinking, guys, that we probably need to do maybe a podcast talking about some of these old stories, I reckon. So we might see if we can do something like that for coming up.
It probably is 1,000 stories by a single publisher, original stories. It's probably worth an exploration all to itself, because the newspaper stories combined are less than 500. And no other publisher would come close to that amount of original content stories.
Yeah, definitely.
So well done, Team Phantom, on your achievement of 1,000 stories. Well done. Saying over in Scandinavia, the Norwegian cassette has been turned into a CD. There was a crowdfunding exercise that has been successfully funded. What's on this cassette again, Jer?
Well, there's a link, so there'll be a link in our show notes. Last Comics and News, when we talked about it, we had a part of the song closing out. We'll probably do the same thing again. But yeah, probably better off just to go to the website, because it's got a YouTube video of the whole cassette. It's good news that it got crowdfunded, because that wouldn't be including many Australians, because it was mainly a Norwegian and Swedish only type of exercise. So it's good. To be honest, I've been that busy, I can't even remember if I funded it or not. So I got to I found a guy who was going to fund for me, but I didn't actually send him the money. So I actually have to figure out whether he actually did end up funding or not. So, but we were looking at getting a couple and maybe using one as a Patreon prize. So we will try and do that still.
Very good. Sal Voluto and Eugenio prints nearly coming out. I think they're getting shipped from Europe this week. Yes. One left, apparently, from what I hear.
Yeah, we got one left. So if you're interested,
one. Yeah. So get yourselves in. How many are you getting, Dan? Have you already put your order? You got the usual 5, is it?
I'm certainly keen to get one. It's I got the set last year as well, and I'll just share it quickly for our YouTube audience. But these are the These are the prints that we're talking about, all in A3 size, and the set that came out last year, but last time that the film festival over there in Italy was available and open, and Sal and Eugenio put those together. They came out brilliantly, and they do a fantastic job. I love Sal's artwork, and the opportunity to get a bunch more A3 size prints of his work just couldn't be passed up.
Yeah, can't wait for them. So hopefully they'll arrive in January for fans who have bought one. Okay, Iron Studios Figurines. The original August 2022 date is now December 2022 for Australia.
So basically, there's a new figurine that's coming out. Statue. Sorry, not figurine. Statue.
That's what had me squiffed. I don't remember a new figurine, but it's a new statue. Yes, I've seen this on the socials.
Yep. So that's it there. Again, there'll be a link in our social media or in our show notes if you have missed it. What's the size going to be? Scroll up again, second, Dan.
It's 18-inch, wasn't it? It's
so 25 centimeters, basically.
10-inch high.
Yeah, it's going to be probably about 1 kilo in weight. Now the US price is $210, and the Aussie price is about $380, so it's not cheap.
No.
Now I'm not completely sold on the Phantom's face. Again, can you just scroll back to that? So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see that.
What's wrong with his face?
Just like the cheekbone bit doesn't really look well. Not really. Yeah, the cow bit. Not really sure on the double chin. Looks like a bum. And then the actual mask as well. Everything else I kind of like. I can live with. The devil looks like a wolf, which is a huge tick. Sometimes he just
got the seams there on his shoulders. Is it?
Yeah.
Is the face enough to stop you from buying it?
Probably not. No, but I'm not. I won't be doing a pre-order.
Yeah.
I'm forking out $400 or 10% of $400 or something like that to put in a pre-order. It's kind of scary, and I think a few fans have been a little bit put off pre-orders with so many delays, especially with boss fights, the card game and the board game from Frew. I just think fans, and like we discussed before, a lot of fans are the older generation, and they're not quite so trusting when it comes to pre-orders as, say, the new generation who are probably more used to it.
What I'd suggest there is, again, a lot of people prefer bricks and mortar. Talk to your local comic book store, because Iron Studios is actually talking to Todd from Kaboom, to just drop a name there, former sponsor. Kaboom Comics in Toowoomba, he is a huge fan of Iron Studios and their work, and he reckons that the quality of the figurines or the statues that they produce are just outstanding. He certainly is very excited for this one coming out. I know it's a large price point, and certainly won't be in everybody's Christmas stocking at the end of 2022. But I think from the way that he was talking about it, I think if you can afford it, if you can save your pennies until Christmas of next year to pay it off at your local comic store or order it online at the time. I'm the same as you, Jim. I won't be pre-ordering it, but other than to say to my local comic book shop, make sure you order one in for me when they come.
That's a very good point. One other way of doing it is a lay-by. I know it's a foreign concept for so many people, but you've got basically a year before it's coming out, right, for Australia. So $400 divided by 12 months is, what's that, less than $40 a month, isn't it?
Well, you're making sense there, Jerm. Careful.
But you know what I mean? Like, when you look at it that way, $40 to a comic book shop, and you can get it on your credit card. The wife won't know about it because it will get mixed up with all her eBay purchases and all her other purchases. But it's not as daunting to be able to say, for the next 10 months or 12 months, I'm going to pay $30, $40 off, and it's probably achievable. And then you have something quite nice that could be a feature point in your collection, which is probably what I'll be doing. I'll probably find someone who'll be getting in and say, well, can I pay it off or can I lay by it?
Yeah.
Something a bit cheaper, which you might still get in time for Christmas at this stage, but I don't quote me on that. But there's some little Christmas decorations coming up from King Features. We've got a good mark and a skull mark Christmas ornament, as well as a Christmas T-shirt. The big thing that puts me against the Christmas T-shirt is it has the Phantom shouting, which I'm not against, but he's saying Happy Holidays. I'm very much a Merry Christmas person, and I realise that that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's my cup of tea, and so I won't be getting it. But pretty much, well, I wasn't going to get it anyway.
What about if
Phantom T-shirts?
What about if it said Merry Phantoming? Would you still get it?
Oh, now we're talking. Merry Phantoming. That one works for me. But yeah, Happy Holidays doesn't.
It's very politically correct, a Happy Holidays slogan. I understand why they did it because, they want to try and sell as many as possible. But I'm a traditionalist like you, Steve, and I don't even like using the word Xmas because it's, it's not, it's not using Christmas. So, I'm with you on that one.
I can't agree with Xmas because I wrote Merry Xmas using Christmas lights this year. I did it just yesterday, and it's come up all right. So I didn't have enough lights to write Christmas, but there's my thing.
Yeah.
The ornaments sell for $20 US, which is about $27 Australian, €18 or 175 SEK. And the T-shirt, which comes in two colours, there's a white and red, so white main colour and red trim with the Phantom in the purple, shouting out Happy Holidays. There's that colour. There's also a looks like black and white, or was it a black and yellow, or was that a charcoal and yellow?
Yeah, the white red one looks better.
Navy and gold, I think. Oh, it's actually navy. Okay. Well, that's $24 US, which is about 33 Australian, €21, 210 SEK. Is this in your Christmas wish list, Dan?
Oh, look, it would be, yeah, for sure. It's interesting when you say it out loud, like you've just said, the prices on them. If those Christmas ornaments were in your local Sanity, which, are the mob that in Australia have been our shop front the last year, I suppose, If they were there at $30 each, would you buy them? Well, yes, you would.
Yes.
You'd probably go, gee, that's an expensive ornament for $30. By the time you get them shipped over from America, gee, that's expensive. So, and particularly with the freight from America being a bit touch and go at the moment for all of the obvious reasons. I'd love to get them. I'd love to hang them on the tree. Might be something I'll look at getting for next year, perhaps.
I'd probably be allowed to get the good mark and put that on the tree. I don't think I'd be allowed to put the skull mark on the tree.
Yeah, I might just be sticking to making my own ones. I made a phantom iron bead today, so I might just have to stick to something like that. But look, again, it's the same thing. Shipping's such a killer. If Frew had them, or if they were at Sanity, you would probably buy 2 of each, one for the Christmas tree and one for the Phantom collection.
Correct.
Yeah, but at that price and at the shipping price, it's a bit out of reach. Now with the t-shirts, the Christmas t-shirts are great, but they're no ugly sweater by Jeff Weigel. So
someone needs to bring out a Phantom ugly sweater. Now I know Trevor Clark has got himself a knitted one.
Oh, I haven't brought my cushion onto the podcast yet.
And that is a truly ugly sweater. No offense, Trevor. I'm talking about the sweater and not yourself. But yeah, someone needs to bring out a Phantom ugly sweater.
I've spoken to my mum who loves knitting, and I asked her, how hard is it to create your own design? Oh no, it's not hard. You just do this. So maybe if I'll catch up with her over Christmas and just say, if I do this, could you knit that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I might even talk to my mum as well. It has to be done.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the was it the Lily Peacock? Is it the Lily Peacock Designs? Libby. So she was WA person. I actually went to the museum and had one of her jumpers in there. I said quite aloud, I said, you got the wrong type of jumper in there, but no one really seemed to care. But it wasn't a Phantom jumper. But her jumpers were kind of like of the ilk of what an ugly Christmas sweater could be.
And if you haven't seen those, they're 1980s, were available through the Phantom Club at the time, and just iconic. Really,
and ugly.
Snapshot of the time of the 80s.
Ugly. What's
classics?
This,
I don't know about ugly. They're classics.
Nigel Johnson, who did the price guides, he used to every Phantom dinner. He used to wear a different one. They're ugly. They're ugly.
Good on
but they're perfect. And I know it's hot in Australia, but someone needs to bring out an ugly Phantoms jumper.
Or even do it as a long sleeve tee for us over here in Australia. That seems to be. Or they seem to put them in as rashi vests as well for when you're on the beach.
Rashies for the beach.
Yeah. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the podcast. I think we started a bit late, so maybe it's getting towards 2 hours, or maybe we're well and truly past 2 hours now. Who knows?
Probably.
With all the editing that goes on, maybe we're only an hour 15. Yeah, right. Okay, but we got a few podcasts in the pipeline that we're already looking at, particularly over Christmas and New Year's. We've got our best of Frew with our annual best of Frew with our annual poll, and Frew will be supplying a prize on that one, so we're looking forward to that. We're going to have a Merry Phantoming quiz, all right, and there's going to be a prize with that. Now that is going to be recorded on the 17th of December. There's going to be more details about that. Well, probably the details are going to be out by the time you've listen to this or watch this podcast. So please keep an eye on the socials, and we'll let you know as much as we can about that. However, it is what you do need to know is you need to download an app called Kahoot. Okay, you will need that app in order to play this quiz. So just putting that out there right now. We'll have our 2021 review coming up. And then we've got a special Phantom themed New Year's resolution episode. We've got interviews coming up in January and an announcement of a special project that we are working on, which is all coming together nicely. So hopefully that's wet your whistle in anticipation for what we've got in store for you over the next little while. So once again, as I mentioned earlier, our website is chroniclechamber.com, and you can email us at chroniclechamber@gmail.com. Please, if you haven't signed up to our Patreon, do yourself a favor, sign up to the Patreon, and have access to a wide variety of things in our P3, in our Phantom Preservation project. Remember, please, if you're just watching us and you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and on whatever platform you're listening to us or watching us on, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, whatever it is that you're watching or listening to us on. We thank you for spending this quality time with us as we've been able to chat Phantom with ourselves and to you. And from me, happy Phantoming.
Merry Phantoming.
Happy Phantoming. We've got another one before Christmas yet.
Melding fra sjefen. Lag øyeblikkelig et nærradioprogram bestående av musikk, moro og aktuelle ting i tiden. Fantomets nærradio.